across the country.
Anyone else want to comment on that? That clearly was the most widely cited among all of the possible trends that we had noted, or developments that we had noted. I think it was 18 out of 21 communities said that the number of students participating had declined over the past 5 years. Whoops.
I think two communities said that they have more teens participating, and I think we need to find out what they're doing and why and how they're being successful. On a positive note.
Alan, did you want to say something?
Alan, go ahead.
Okay, heads are shaking, so I can't hear myself, but that's okay. So I guess noticing that there's less professional development going on and more experiments with new models and activities, one of the challenges that we're having, we have a pretty serious professional development initiative going on, and many of us are coming to the conclusion that much as we try to improve the quality of teachers, in the end, we might be better off looking at new models for changing frameworks, such as offering the option of attending a 2-week camp as opposed to 2 or 3 week camp as opposed to Sunday school and Hebrew school, which I know is going on in some communities. And one congregation is looking seriously at that because of all the reasons we know that camping is more effective than schooling, and how during the course of the year having Shabbatonim or camp reunions with families, etc., might be a more effective direction to go in terms of achieving the goals we say we want to achieve.
Did anything in the responses surprise any of you? Maybe the reason that people aren't reacting is because it's sort of ho hum. Yeah, it's exactly what I would have expected.
Thank you. Okay.
I just put it up there again, John.
Thank you.
And people will notice that they do have the opportunity now on the right-hand side to speak. I put the audio up.
Well, I mean,
John, I don't think it was surprising, but I do think it relates to the other issues. I mean, we're doing more experiential stuff, we're doing less professional development, we've got fewer kids, and we've got many fewer hours. And then everybody's expecting the congregations and the congregational system, the supplementary system, to work miracles. There's a whole gap between the reality and what it is that we're allowing to happen or are incapable of stopping from happening. And despite, I'm looking down the list here, new curricula. What are they based on? Are they based on fewer hours, more experiential, less professional development? I mean, that to me wouldn't, if I was sitting in a national office, I wouldn't be planning for that. I'd be planning for something else, which may, again, raise the problem of the gap between the reality and the ideal, which we're simply not confronting.
Mm-hmm. Well, it seems to me that leads to the second question that we had posed in the pre-survey, which is, what are the central agencies? What are you out in the central agency world doing these days? Then, with respect to complementary education. So, Steve, you're going to scroll down that one as well?
Yep.
Scrolling, this is Udit in Columbus. Something else that I found, I suppose not surprising, but disappointing, was the relatively low number of increased involvement of rabbis. If so much of this is being provided from congregations, and if the trend is to move away from congregations and the numbers are going down, I know that when we were going through Columbus to say, can we be doing this WOW project or not, the first place we started was the rabbis. So if they're first on our list to speak to about making sure that changes can happen and they would buy in, yet they are very low on the number of involvement or increased involvement in light of all these things going around, that raises flags to me.
You know, this is Ed. This is kind of, I over the past few weeks, sat in and been part of a couple of think tank kinds of things, locally and elsewhere. And I think underlying this is an issue that I keep kind of recognizing as I'm sitting with people. There's a kind of dissonance or a disconnect that when I've sat down and been part of groups that have listed goals for what congregational education ought to be about, and heard of other groups doing it. I know that Pelley's had a kind of a think tank recently. They usually list 4 or 5 major sorts of goals, and usually one of the 4 or 5 has to do with the stuff that we have designed the system to address. You know, one of the goals is usually about literacy or competency or something like that, and the others are all about engagement and identity and things like that. And there's this dissonance between kind of what we say we're doing and what we're really trying to accomplish. And I think some of that gets reflected in what I'm seeing here. That, well, yeah, professional development for teachers or those kinds of things relate to formal schooling, but the goals that people are most concerned about, and this ranges from a single synagogue I sat with to leadership in my community to what I hear in national groups, is something else. And so I think that's why a lot of us are beginning to look outside the box in that way, for better or for worse.
What do you mean by looking outside the box, Ed?
I mean that, as Alan was saying, looking at new kinds of models. That if the synagogue's goal isn't really about educating the kids, then running a school may not be the best structure for accomplishing that.
Do people want me to scroll once again through the whole list here?
I'm curious. Has anybody done anything like this with congregational education providers? The same set of questions. These are our responses to the same things about our sense of what's going on out there. What do they feel? Do we know that? And do we know whether or not they are experiencing the same disconnect or dissonance that Ed was talking about, and therefore they're doing whatever they're doing or not doing whatever they're doing, whatever we would assume they should be doing?